Welcome, everyone. Today, we're talking about Sequential Feature Selection, SFS, and how it holds up as a practical tool once your feature count stops being tens and starts being tens of thousands. This isn't a survey of every feature selection method that exists. It's a deep dive into one specific family: greedy wrapper search, forward selection, backward elimination, and floating search. By the end, you should know not just how these algorithms work, but when to reach for one over the other, what they cost you in practice, and where the failure modes actually show up in production. Let's start with why this problem is worth 40 minutes of anyone's time. Here's the core tension. As the number of features, n, grows, the volume of your input space explodes. Not linearly, combinatorially. Your model needs exponentially more data just to estimate a reliable decision boundary in that space. Most of us don't get exponentially more data. And it's not just a statistics problem. Irrelevant and redundant features actively hurt you. They inject noise into gradients, into tree splits, into every mechanism your model uses to learn. More features doesn't just mean slower training, it means worse generalization. There's also an interpretability cost that's easy to forget until a stakeholder asks you to explain a decision. Nobody can audit a model with 4,000 active inputs. And regularization, L1, L2, helps with the statistics, but it doesn't remove anything from your serving pipeline. You're still paying the ingestion cost and the inference cost for every feature you didn't actually need. To put a number on it, 20,000 plus candidate features is a completely normal starting point in domains like genomics, clickstream data, or NLP n-gram features. And that's often measured against a dataset with only hundreds, maybe a few thousand labeled rows. That mismatch is the entire problem we're solving today. Before we get into SFS specifically, let's place it on the map. There are three broad families of feature selection: filter methods, wrapper methods, and embedded methods. Filter methods score each feature independently, mutual information, chi-squared, before any model ever gets trained. They're fast, but they're blind to how features interact with each other or with a specific model. Embedded methods build selection into training itself. Think Lasso's L1 penalty, or a random forest's built-in importance wars. Efficient, but the selection is tied entirely to that one model's inductive bias. Wrapper methods, where SFS lives, take a different approach entirely. They treat the model as a black box and search over subsets of features by actually training and evaluating candidates. Here's the loop, and this is the mental model I want you to leave this slide with. You start with a feature pool, all n candidates. You form a candidate subset, your current selection plus or minus one feature. You train and cross-validate a model on that subset. You score it against the best subset you found so far. And then you repeat. Add a feature for forward selection or remove one for backward elimination until you hit your target count K or until improvement stalls out. That loop, propose, train, score, repeat, is the entire idea. Everything else we cover today is a variation on how you walk that loop efficiently. So within wrapper methods, there are really three algorithms worth knowing well. Sequential forward selection starts from an empty set and adds the single best scoring feature each round. It's cheap early on because every round is evaluating a small, growing subset. Its rough complexity is on the order of k times n model fits, so it scales with how many features you're keeping, not how many you're throwing away. Sequential backward elimination flips that. It starts with the full feature set and removes the worst performing feature each round. It sees feature interactions earlier because it starts with everything in play. But every round is scoring a large subset, so its cost scales closer to n minus k times n. When your target k is small relative to n, backward elimination gets expensive fast. And then there's floating search, SFS and SFBS. This adds a twist. After each forward step, it conditionally allows a backward step to reconsider a feature it added earlier and see if removing something else now produces a better subset. It costs more model fits than plain forward or backward search, but it's the closest a purely greedy method gets to escaping local optima, to correcting an earlier decision instead of being stuck with it. The practical rule of thumb: default to forward when k is much smaller than n. Reach for backward only when your kept set is close to the full pool. And reach for floating search specifically when you suspect your features interact, when no single feature looks great alone, but pairs or triples of them do. Let's make this concrete with actual code. This is Scikit-learn's Sequential Feature Selector, wired up the way you'd actually run it in production. We're wrapping a logistic regression estimator, scoring with ROC-AUC, and cross-validating with a 5-fold stratified split. Stratified matters here, especially with imbalanced classes, because you want each fold to be representative. The function signature takes a direction parameter. That's the single toggle between forward and backward search. Same estimator, same cross-validation scheme, same scoring function. One parameter controls the entire search strategy. That's worth internalizing. You're not choosing between two different tools, you're choosing between two directions through the same search space. The other detail I want to call out is njobs equals -1 on the selector itself. This is the single biggest production lever for making SFS tractable. Within any one round, you're evaluating many candidate features, and each of those evaluations, plus its cross-validation folds, is independent of the others. That means SFS is embarrassingly parallel within a round, even though the rounds themselves have to happen one after another. If your SFS run feels too slow, the first thing to check isn't the algorithm, it's whether you're actually using all your cores. Once fit, get support with indices equals true gives you back the column indices of your selected subset, ready to slice into your feature matrix for the final model. Let's zoom back out and put SFS in context against the alternatives. Because in production, you're rarely choosing SFS in isolation. You're choosing it instead of something else. Filter methods are the cheapest by far. One pass over your data, no model feedback at all. That makes them ideal for pre-screening thousands of features down to something more manageable. Fast, but they're blind to interactions. Wrapper methods, SFS and its variants, sit in the middle. Moderate to high cost, on the order of k times n model fits, but they account for the actual estimator you're going to ship, and they're locally greedy rather than blind. Embedded methods are cheap, a single training run, but the selection is tied entirely to that one model's inductive bias. If you swap estimators later, your selected features may no longer be the right ones. And exhaustive search, evaluating every possible subset, is globally optimal by definition and completely intractable beyond about 20 features, because the cost is 2 to the n. It's a research baseline, not a production tool. The practical takeaway? Use filters to get from thousands of features down to hundreds. Use SFS to do the careful work in that reduced space, and save embedded methods for when your estimator is already fixed and already regularized. Let's talk numbers, and then let's talk about what actually goes wrong. For a concrete illustration, with 500 candidate features and a target of 50, forward selection runs on the order of 23,750 model fits. Backward elimination, going the other direction down to the same 50 features, runs closer to 225,000 fits. That's roughly a 10 times cost difference, entirely because backward elimination starts by fitting on all 500 features and shrinks slowly, while forward selection starts small and stays small for longer. Now, the failure modes. And if you only remember one thing from this slide, make it the first one. Selection leakage. If you use the same cross-validation folds to select your features and to report your final model's performance, you will inflate your numbers, quietly and consistently. Always nest your feature selection inside an outer cross-validation loop. Second, greedy local optima. Forward and backward search can miss feature pairs that are only informative together, XOR-like interactions. Floating search reduces this risk but doesn't eliminate it. Third, runaway cost at scale. Beyond roughly 1,000 to 2,000 candidate features, wrapping the full pool stops being affordable. Pre-filter first. And fourth, non-determinism. Cross-validation shuffling changes which features get selected from run to run. Fix your random state, and if this matters for your use case, report variance across multiple seeds. Let's ground this in a real domain where high dimensionality isn't a hypothetical, it's the entire problem. Gene expression microarray studies are the canonical high-dimensional, low-sample size case. Tens of thousands of genes profiled across only dozens to a few hundred patients. Sequential floating search has been a standard wrapper baseline in this literature since Poodle, Novovichova, and Kittler introduced SFFS back in 1994. The pipeline that actually makes this tractable follows the pattern from the last two slides almost exactly. Start with a variance or mutual information filter to cut 20,000 genes down to roughly 2,000. Run SFFS as the wrapper stage on that reduced pool, targeting somewhere around 50 genes. And wrap the whole thing in nested cross-validation to get an unbiased estimate of how the resulting panel will actually perform. End-to-end, that's roughly a 400 times reduction in dimensionality, from 20,000 raw genes down to a 50-gene panel, while keeping the wrapper stage affordable specifically because you filtered first. That combination, cheap filter then careful wrapper, is the pattern that makes SFS viable at this scale, and it generalizes well beyond genomics. I want to close the technical portion by looking at where this is heading, because the frontier here isn't a new algorithm. It's removing SFS's core bottleneck, which is sequential one candidate at a time evaluation. First, embedded warm starts. Rank your candidates with lasso or tree importances before you ever run SFS. Then run the wrapper search only over the top slice of that ranking. That alone can cut your model fits by an order of magnitude before the greedy search even begins. Second, batched GPU evaluation. If you can fit many candidate feature models concurrently on GPU-resident data, you turn each round from many sequential fits into one batched fit. That directly attacks the classic scalability complaint about SFS. Third, bandit-based early stopping. Treat candidate evaluation within a round as a multi-armed bandit problem. You can discard clearly worse candidates before their full cross-validation run even completes, instead of waiting for every candidate to finish. And fourth, SFS is increasingly showing up not as a standalone pre-processing step, but as a composable, Scikit-learn compatible stage inside larger AutoML search spaces, tools like Optuna or Flamel. That's a meaningful shift. Feature selection stops being something you do once up front and becomes one more thing the outer search loop can tune. Let's land the 5 things I actually want you to walk out with. 1. SFS trades optimality for a tractable, interpretable search. It's a greedy heuristic, not an optimal subset guarantee, and that's a feature, not a limitation, as long as you're honest about it. 2. Forward selection is cheaper when your target K is small relative to N. Backward elimination is cheaper when K is close to N. Pick your direction based on that ratio, not by habit. 3, and I'll say this one twice because it's the guardrail that actually gets skipped in practice, always score candidates with nested cross-validation. Reusing the same folds for selection and for final evaluation inflates your reported performance. 4, floating search is the right default specifically when feature interactions matter and the extra model fits are affordable. It's not strictly better than forward or backward, it's a different cost versus thoroughness trade. And 5, beyond roughly 1 to 2,000 candidate features, pre-filter before you wrap. SFS should be pruning hundreds of features, not tens of thousands. That's the full arc, from why dimensionality hurts, through forward, backward, and floating search, into production trade-offs and where this is headed. Thank you for sticking with the depth. Before we open it up, one question I genuinely like you to sit with. Where in your current pipeline would swapping a filter step for a wrapper-based search actually change which features survive? Not where it would be nice to try SFS, where it would change the outcome. That's usually the place where a filter method is discarding features that only look weak in isolation, but that the model would actually use if paired with something else. And if nothing comes to mind immediately, that's useful information too. It may mean your filter stage is already doing enough, and a wrapper would just add cost without changing the result. I genuinely love to hear a concrete example from your own data. A dataset size, a feature count, whatever you're comfortable sharing. That's usually where the most useful part of a session like this happens, more than any slide I could have put together. With that, I'll open it up. Questions, pushback, war stories, all welcome. We have covered the spectrum from theory to production reality. I invite you to consider where, in your specific pipeline, a wrapper-based search might meaningfully change the features that survive. Thank you for watching.